Ew. There we go. I first started talking about this many years ago. People thought, well, you're crazy. I was like, actually, that's not me saying it. That's me quoting Nikola Tesla, James Clerk Maxwell, other greats, including J.J. Thomson, regarding the electron. Let me point out the blatant obvious fact that's blatantly obvious to me, maybe not to you, is that today's scientists and physicists are actually not scientists, not in the Aristotelian Platonic sense. Rather, they're mathematicians. The core religion of math is that it has to be quantized. You have to be able to count it. There's one of them right there. One. It's kind of like Count from Sesame Street. 1, 2, ha ha ha. I don't know if you know that character. He's like a vampire, they called him the Count. And all he did was he loved to count things. That's what today's physicists are like. And I'm not against math. However, math is not to be confused with arithmetic. People today don't know the difference, unfortunately. The Pythagoreans and the Platonists were interested in arithmetic, not math. There is a difference. Anyway, this is about electrons. Yep. The so-called discoverer of the electron, J.J. Thomson, let me read you this one, developed the ether atom idea of Michael Faraday into his electronic corpuscle. This individual unit 1 corpuscle terminates on 1 faradic tube of force, and this quantifies as 1 coulomb. This corpuscle is not an electron or a particle. It is the constituent of what today is known incorrectly as the electron. This is 1 unit of dielectric induction, actually, according to J.J. Thomson. Not a particle at all. It's not a particle. The idea of charge-carrying a particle always makes me laugh. It's some intellectual humor. So the electron, I've had debates with these people before. So the electron is not the actual charge itself. Yes, it is. It's like, no, you guys keep calling it the charge-carrying particle. Like the electron is a clown car, and inside of the clown car are 12 units of charge that are going to either get in it or get out of it. So it's not the charge itself. Well, that's not right. So, no, that's what you call it. Call it the charge-carrying particle. It's not the charge itself. It's that which carrying the charge. And also, too, if you ask these people, I've had this line of thought. It's just like playing chess. It's like cornering, as the Russians call it, igrash na shakhmaty, playing checkmate, as it's called in Russian. You make this move, and they always make that move. And when they make that move, you're like, checkmate. This is what you do. See, let me get this straight. Excuse me, I'm Mr. Stupid Person here. Yes, I can see that. You're covered in tattoos. You're probably not that intelligent. Excuse me, sir, Mr. PhD physicist. Is the flow of charge and the energy, if you will, yeah, even though they never define the term energy, the flow of electrons. Yes, it always is, invariably so. Yes. So, like, power lines in the back of my house. Yes, there's a lot of electrons flowing through those lines. Yes. And, even discharge from, the DC lithium battery inside this. Yes, it's flow of electrons. That's how everything works. Oh, how does wireless power induction work? Well, it's different. Oh, there's lines of force. It's field induction. That's what they'll tell you. It's like, well, we can talk about induction a little bit later. It's a matter for another discussion. So, lines of force. Force of what, by what, upon what. Force is not a thing. Neither are waves. Waves are not a thing at all. Rather, what things do. Force is not a thing either. This is force! There's nothing that you could point to in nature that's force. Nothing that you could point to. Technically, the closest thing that comes to it is magnetism. Definitionally, it's force. Yeah, this would be, of course, analogous to amperage, but that's a matter for another discussion. So, force is not a thing. Force of what, by what, and upon what. Of course, lines are an abstraction. They're just talking about constructive and destructive interference, actually seen in grids and AC systems, like power lines, AC generators, which are not generators at all, rather manifest electricity. They don't actually generate electricity. So, you're completely inconsistent. The center doesn't hold. Fundamentally, to nail them down very, very simply, the center doesn't hold. It's like, well, you said all energy is the flow of electrons. It is! Oh, okay. So you can't explain wireless power induction since even they know it's completely ridiculous to say that wireless power induction, especially in a vacuum, or even like, like your toothbrush or your Apple Watch, which uses an induction coil. Yeah. They know that there's nothing flowing between the induction coil on one unit and the induction coil on the receiving unit. There's nothing flowing there. They know that. Some of them will actually say, yes, there is something flowing there. It's virtual photons. It's like, well, these are not things that have ever been observed in any experiment. They're an arbitrary conception with no basis in reality. See, this is what happens when you deny the ether, because all fields are ether perturbation modalities. But since they have completely eliminated out ether, kind of like saying the devil in the middle of a church service, devil! And be like, oh, heresy! Heresy! When you say ether, it is exactly like a heresy, like shouting the devil out in the middle of a church service. So completely inconsistent. Their center doesn't hold. Then you start talking about power induction. It's like, well, you've never defined the term energy. They've never defined the word field. Pretty sure most things in nature are fields and energy. Fields are energy, of course, and energy are fields. But they haven't defined these. They'll actually give you descriptors of energy. Energy is the ability to do work. It's like, well, that's a description. However, it's not an explanation. So let's get on to J.J. Thomson and Nikola Tesla, because people think I'm just like crazy. They say, well, how does an electron microscope work? It's like, well, if you think that electron microscope, you need to look up what a gold sputter chamber actually is emitting out like electron particles, then I will tell you that my microwave in the kitchen is technically a quantum heating device. That's right, it's a quantum heating device. J.J. Thomson, yep. Nikola Tesla, here we go, November 1928 interview. On the whole subject of the matter, in fact, Dr. Tesla holds that there are startling original thoughts. He disagrees with the accepted atomic theory of matter and does not believe in the existence of an electron, as pictured by science, to account for its apparently small mass, Tesla says. Science conceives the electron as a hollow sphere, a sort of bubble, a bubble which could exist in a medium, in a gas or a liquid, become its internal pressure, etc., conceivable of, this is, by the way, an article from a famous prophet of science and a look into the future. The slightest conceivable deformation must result in the destruction of the bubble, not to mention another improbability. In other words, he dismisses this atomic notion or particle-based notion of the electron. Here's Tesla again on the electron. My ideas regarding the electron are at variance with those generally entertained. I hold that it is a relatively large entity carrying surface charge, not an elementary unit or particle. In the principle, the electron leaves an electrode of high potential, and in a high vacuum it carries an electrostatic charge many times greater than that of normal. The person that actually got it right is Charles Brodie-Steinmetz, most accurate, I should say, most accurate, is Charles Brodie-Steinmetz's electrical discharges, waves, and impulses. I think this is on page 9. Unfortunately, to a large extent in dealing with dielectric fields, the prehistoric, this was published in 1917, the prehistoric conception of the electrostatic charge, or the electron on the conductor, still exists, and by its use destroys the analogy between the two components of the electrical field, the magnetic and the dielectric. This makes consideration of dielectric fields unnecessarily complicated. And of course, he's completely correct. The so-called electrons are not particles nor objects or subjects but dynamic principles of discharge, and are certainly not charge-carrying particles. Fields are certainly not particles, nor are they electrons, nor assuredly are there energy discharges in vacuums of space involving electrons. People talk about plasma, of course. Not to mention the space is not a field terminal. No discharge has ever been a discharge in space, because space is not a terminal for a discharge. It never has been, nor has anybody ever stipulated that fact. Actually, some relativists, I think, have. The electron is a fiction, a fallacious observation, and even dynamic polarization. Magnetism is ether in a state of dynamic circular polarization upon itself, and as the radiative termination of electrical discharge. Dielectricity is the ether under stress or strain. The motions of the strain give rise to the electrification, whose units in conceptualization are incorrectly called this charge-carrying particle, or the so-called the electron. You can't say that stretching a trillion rubber bands nailed to the floor and releasing them or breaking their lines of force. You ever pulled a rubber band back too far, and of course you pulled it back too far and it broke? Breaking these lines of force are the flow of electrons. Discharge is a terminal movement in systems of inductance or dielectric capacitance. There are no discrete particles in the universe, and certainly none that mediate out charges, discharges, magnetism, electromagnetism, and gravity. Yet these people think that because they are mathematicians. They believe in the quantification, das Lichtquant, i.e. quantum, the quantification of everything in the universe. They think Mother Nature's a crazy chick with a bag of bumping particles. I call this the cult of bumping particles, which is both humorous and extremely accurate. These so-called electrons are not particles, not objects or subjects, but the dynamic principle of discharge. I already said that. Excuse me about that. You know, it's like getting a slap to the face and thinking that was a slap particle. No, that was a discharge of energy. Some calories were burned, and your face got slapped. That was not a particle. Well, it transferred energy, you know, the slap to my face, and that could be measured in joules, watts, volts, amps, so on and so forth. However, wish they want to talk about attributional quantifiers of so-called electrons. Like, no, it was a slap. That was not like a slap particle. No, it was a slap particle. They have the same idea about electrons. They say, well, how does an electron microscope work, Mr. Fat, Bald, Tattooed Man, if electrons don't exist? Well, they don't exist. It's an electrostatic discharge device. You ever heard of a gold sputter chamber? Yeah. Electrostatic discharge device with the dielectric capacitance, be high or low. In its reflectance, there's the receiver that's used in an electron microscope, and they put the subject, I remember the newest electron microscopes. You can actually fit larger things into them. You know, they pump out the air, which of course has its own dielectric permittivity, so it has greater resolution, and it works off the reflectivity of the target object, whatever it is you stick into the electron microscope. The more accurate description of an electron microscope is an electrostatic reflectance imager. Let me repeat that again, because it's really, really simple, because nature is actually quite simple. It's extremely complicated. I've seen many old electron microscopes for sale. Some of them are as big as 2 Volkswagen. Electrostatic discharge reflectance imager. You could just say, what would be a more simple or an accurate way to describe an electron microscope? A microscope, yeah, well, I'm coming up with this on the fly. Electrostatic reflectance imager microscope. Electrostatic reflectance, ESIM. ESIM, electrostatic reflectance imager microscope. There would be an accurate denotation of what an electron microscope is. An electrostatic reflectance imager. Incredibly complicated, but fundamentally very simple. No, it's an electron microscope emitting electrons. No, it's not. And my microwave is not a quantum heating device. That proves quantum! You can't deny quantum computers. Quantum computers are purely electrical. Here's another important point, not that I want to talk about quantum. There is nothing no person on this earth can point to. That's quantum. Right over there. You see that? It's quantum. It doesn't refer to anything in nature. There's nothing in nature you can point. It's quantum. Right there. You missed it. Look closer. You blinked. You missed it. Right there. It's quantum. Quantum! These people are funny. It's the same way Martin Luther argued. There's a great movie everybody should see. It's called Luther. It is put out by the Lutheran Church. You know, you can ignore that fact. Everything is self-reflective, it's like a circle of stupidity, where Luther was interested in what the Bible actually said, not what the Catholic Church said. Catholic Church said, Martin Luther said, that's not in the Bible. So the Pope is the reference. Like, no, Pope is the Pope, and all the other stuff associated with Catholicism is not a reference to Christianity. You know, 99% of Catholicism is not found in the Bible. It's edicts and stuff of the Pope, you know, papal bulls, you know, pontifications upon various pontifaxes throughout time. This is because modern science operates exactly like the Catholic Church does. Well, I have a PhD, you have to be peer-reviewed by other people that believe the same nonsense. You got to have like multiple people that look like this, that all went to the exact same church and they all got brainwashed with the same nonsense. I believe the same nonsense as my buddy. It's like, yeah, that's a religion. That's a belief system. That's not logical. It's not science. It's not scientific methodology. There is no such thing as an electron. It is a concept. An electron particle does not exist. The Saturnian model of the atom has been disproved even by these so-called scientists for at least 20 years. The notion that an atom is like there's a nucleus of protons and neutrons in the middle, and around in various valence levels, there's spinning electrons. There are valence levels of charge because every atom is nothing other than an electrostatic dynamo. Yep, it's an electrostatic dynamo. Very simple. There are valence levels where dissipation occurs, but they're not. Don't you understand how important it is that the Saturnian model of the atom, that's the old idea of the atom, and people, scientists and the internet still represent the atom like that, like this. There's a little nucleus, and around it there's a little spinning balls of electrons, and there's another shell of spinning balls. Well, here we got 10 spinning balls, but the next valence level, there's 20 spinning balls. And the people that are into chemistry, it's like, well, you're talking about, atomic compounds, molecules, you need these things. The only thing I'm doing is replacing something that's incredibly ignorant, stupid, and untrue with something that's logical, sensible, and true. Valence levels of charge, because every atom is nothing other than an electrostatic dynamo. Even the scientists who are intellectually challenged, to be nice, even they have dismissed the Saturnian model of the atom. Now they've actually replaced it with quantum. Well, there's probabilities, there might be an electron there, but, certainly not Saturnian model of the atom is not correct. It's like, well, we can all agree the Saturnian model of the atom is not correct. Yet they still use that. An atom is a nucleus of protons and neutrons spinning on the atom and surrounded by different valence levels of spinning electrons. Completely ridiculous. It's an insult to nature. It's an insult to natural order. It's just completely ridiculous. These people have particles on the brain. Electrons. It's like, no, you said all flow of energy was the movement of electrons. It is. Well, that doesn't explain wireless power induction. Doesn't explain a million other things, including instantaneous action at a distance. It's impossible. Well, when we're doing that, we're talking about virtual photons. No one's ever seen one, but we know that they exist. That's just no different than someone in a religion. Well, I've never seen him up there, but I know he's up there. He's always watching down on me. He's watching everything I do. I got no proof he exists, but I know he's up there, sitting on his throne. God is in his holy temple. These people talk about things for which there is absolutely no evidence, nor facts, logic, or wisdom for. There's a lot of things we haven't seen, but we know logically, necessitatively they must exist. But these virtual photons, these are all quantum phenomena. They're quantum particles. You never see one, but we know they exist. What about, instead of particles, we replace it with something logical and sensible, like field induction and electrostatic charge, or as J.J. Thomson correctly called the principle of the electron, 1 unit of dielectric induction, which is not a particle at all, rather a field modality expression. But these people never defined field, and they never defined energy. It makes things too complicated because they are mathematicians. Just remember that mathematicians' fundamental belief system, its 10 commandments, is that if you can't count it, it don't exist. If we see the phenomena, we have to particleize it. Here's the electron. It's a charge-carrying particle. So the electron's not the charge, it's carrying the charge. Right! So, once again, we're back to the clown car again. The little door opens up an electron, and out comes the charge. Well, that's ridiculous! I mean, that's a heresy against simplicity. It completely turns Occam's razor inside out, upside down, and lights it on fire. So, you think I'm crazy for denying the electron? I will point out to you that the wisest minds who ever lived, the experts of field theory, Charles Brodie Steinmetz, Eric Dollard, Nikola Tesla, Heaviside, on and on and on. They all said the same thing. There's no such thing as a charge-carrying particle. The phenomena does, of course, exist, but it is not a particle. I always get that on, you can't deny electrons, because what about the electron microscope? It's an electrostatic reflectance imager. You know how a camera works? It works off of basically the same principle, except we're using light, conventional illumination. You know, as like I turn on the camera. We have the light fall on this object. Yeah, turn on my camera, click. It's using the reflectance from the light upon this object to image it on the sensor. Electrostatic reflectance imager is fascinating because its frequency is essentially nil. It's not totally nil, but it's essentially nil, which means we can image things that are incredibly super tiny. Yeah, way tinier than the lowest frequency possible, which would be, well, actually the smallest spatial capacitance, which would be something above gamma, but we don't image things with gamma radiation. Well, actually we do image some things with gamma radiation. Actually, they use gamma ray imagers at import depots of like shipping, where stuff cargo comes in from across the world. They'll actually use gamma to see what's inside of it without actually opening it up. Most of that, however, is not gamma, it's X-ray. It's X-ray imagers of shipping containers. Anyway, it's a matter for another discussion. So, there we go with the electron. The phenomena that is absolutely not a particle. Not because I said it's not. Tesla, Dollard, Heaviside, Maxwell, on and on and on. J.J. Thomson. Don't take my word for it, take their word for it. Don't take anybody's word for it. Believe whatever you want. I still believe in electron. There's still people out there that believe in, like, oh my God, he's looking at me. I better watch what I do. People believe all sorts of crazy stuff. I don't care what people believe. That's not my job. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.